Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Commish Orr, and welcome back to something I like to call Stories from the Maelstrom, a recap of the day's games for this past week of real time. Well, welcome back, everyone. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done one of these, thanks to the All-Star break. If you haven't already seen it, you can check out the actual play of the All-Star game between the AL All-Stars and the NL All-Stars here on this channel. You know, over check that video out. I also did a home run derby prior to that, so you can check that out and see how I did the home run derby with the payoff pitch cards. I thought it went pretty well. There's maybe some things I'd tweak about it, but I think it went okay. The All-Star game took a little longer than normal, only because of all the substitutions. But with all that said, we are back at it here. So just checking the schedule out here. If we look, we can see that we're here on May 2nd. The All-Star break, or the All-Star game, was April 30th here. I'm playing a shortened season, 1/3 of the full length of a season, so 54 games per team, so that I'd actually have a chance of making it through this whole thing. And this is just kind of a trial to see how the game plays and how this thing goes. And I figured I would tweak it and maybe redo it and at a future time. So I didn't want to do a full 162 game series. In any event, we are here at May 2nd. And as you can see, we're at the beginning of a 4-game series with all the teams here. 4-game series right after the All-Star break. Just to give you a little bit of concept of where we're at here. So let's head to the first game. We are at Boston's Fenway Park. And the Boston Splinters continuing to win. Continuing to find ways to win. Here we are in the American League, which is a heavy offense league, and we had a total of 11 hits in this game. A pretty low number. But then again, we had 2 aces going. We had Bert Blyleven for the Oakland Jacks and Pedro Martinez for the Boston Splinters. Martinez started in the bullpen earlier in the year. This, again, was based on a season in which he was injured for a big chunk of the season, and so he didn't have he didn't start the full season slate of games. And so I had him out of the bullpen for a good chunk of the first half of the season. And I'm working him into the starting rotation here and there with some extra rest, just to account for the fact that he didn't have a full season in real life that year that I'm using for him. But Pedro did very, very well, as we can see. Both teams scored in the first inning. The Jacks scored thanks to an unearned run there in the first on a Harmon Killebrew fielding error. It's his 3rd of the season. And then Lou Gehrig hit a 2-run homer in the bottom of the first to put the Boston Splinters ahead, and off of ace Bert Blyleven. And neither team scored again until the 6th, when Boston scored a couple more runs to add some insurance. But things got a little bit interesting in the top of the 8th with Pedro Martinez still in there. He hit Robin Yount, and then Hank Greenberg doubled him in to cut the lead to 4-2. However, in the 9th, Raleigh Fingers came in. He hasn't had a whole lot of save opportunities in Boston because they tend to just blow away their competitors in their wins. But in this case, he did, and he came in, and he had a little bit of shakiness there in the 9th inning. Reggie Jackson singled, and Manny Minoso walked to put a couple of guys on base. Nellie Fox grounded out there to first, advancing the runners to second and third. So they had the tying run there on second. But then George Sisler struck out to end the game. So Boston took this one 4-2. They continued their winning ways. They improved to 16-10, and Oakland fell to 12-14. Next, we headed over to Los Angeles as the Houston Hoots took on the LA Dynamos. And again, this was another pitching duel. A total of 6 hits for both teams combined. And all the run production came in that first inning. So Koufax had a little bit of shakiness there in the first. He allowed a 2-run homer to Hank Aaron there in the first inning. In the bottom of the first, LA actually responded with a home run of their own. Cristobal Torriente hit a homer off of Bob Gibson there. But then neither team scored, well, really for the rest of the game. Koufax was dominating. In his 8 innings, he only allowed 2 hits. One of those was that home run to Hank Aaron. The other one came in the 5th inning, the leadoff single to Ryan Sandberg. But that was it. He only struck out 5, but was quite dominated. Unfortunately for him, LA couldn't score off of Bob Gibson and company. So Gibson allowed only 4 hits of his own, again, including that homer in the 1st inning. He had a couple of shaky innings in there. Allowed 3. He walked 3, walked 2, but struck out 6. It was a close game the entire way through, and then, of course, in the 9th inning, things got turned over to 2 solid pitchers out of the bullpen. Lee Smith picked up the save, his 7th of the year, and Bob Gibson picked up only his 3rd win of the season. He's 3-4. Sandy Koufax falls to 5-3, and so Houston, with a great start to the second half, they improved to 11-16. LA falls to 14-13. Next, we head over to New York, the Polo Grounds. And this one was a pretty dramatic game. Detroit facing off against the New York Swats. Roger Clemens facing off against Nolan Ryan. Neither starter was very sharp in this one. But neither was involved in the eventual decision either. So if we take a look, Detroit right out of the gate, Mark McGwire hit a 2-run shot in the 1st inning off Nolan Ryan, and then the Detroit Rockets added 3 more runs in the 3rd. 2 of those thanks to another home run, this one by Adrian Beltre. The Swats did score 1 in the 2nd, in the bottom of the 2nd, when Yogi Berra singled in Roberto Alomar, who had gotten on base with a double. And then in the 4th, New York scored a couple more runs to cut the lead to 5-3. This time Alomar had a triple, and Ty Cobb hit a homer to score him, again, to cut that lead to 5-3. Ryan kind of calmed down a little bit, and he cruised for a few innings. So in the bottom of the 6th, with the score still 5-3, and Clemens still on the mound, Ken Griffey Jr. doubled to lead off the inning. Clemens retired the next couple of batters. Harold Baines struck out. But then Alomar came up, already with a double and a triple in the game, and hit a 2-run homer to tie things up 5-5. So here's Alomar with just needing a single to complete the cycle. Nobody's had one yet this year. And so we headed to the top of the 7th with the score all tied at 5. And Nolan Ryan went out to take the mound again and almost immediately ran into some trouble. Ichiro Suzuki singled and stole 2nd and reached 3rd on a throwing error by Yogi Berra. And then Alex Rodriguez hit an RBI double for their 1st run. Ryan struck out Mark McGwire, but then Beltre singled, put runners on 1st and 3rd. Nolan Ryan strikes out Charlie Blackwell. Looked like he might get out of the jam with not too much damage done. But Bobby Veach doubled in both runners to put Detroit up 8-5. So at that point, things didn't look too good for the Swats. That score held into the 9th inning. The top of the 9th, we had an early win Wade Hoyt came in the 8th, and he pitched into the 9th. McGwire flew out to center, but then Beltre, Blackwell, and Veach all had singles to load the bases with 1 out early win came in. New York with a pretty light bullpen. Early win comes in the ninth with one out, 3 runners on, but was able to get Bill Freehand to ground out to the pitcher for the force out at home, and then Lou Whitaker flew out to end the inning. Little did they know they would need that run that they missed out, the run opportunity they missed out on there. So with an 8-5 lead heading into the bottom of the ninth, they brought in closer Tom Henke, who has been pretty lights out this year. He does have a couple lone saves, though, heading into the ninth of this game. And things would unravel pretty quickly. Harold Baines led off the double. Alomar walked. Ty Cobb singled in Baines for the first run of the inning. And then Yogi Berra doubled in 2 more runs to tie things up 8-8. Henke was left in. Still nobody out at that point. He got Wade Boggs to fly out to shallow right field. But it was enough for Berra to take third. So with a runner on third base, the winning run on third base, and only 1 out, facing Lou Boudreau, who does not strike out very often, Detroit made the decision to intentionally walk Lou Boudreau and Babe Ruth to face Ken Griffey Jr. and Jimmy Fox, 2 potential strikeout candidates there. Griffey flew out to a drawn-in outfield to center, and so it looked like they might escape and have another chance and send this one to extra innings. But Jimmy Fox was able to work the count and work a walk, and there Henke walks in the winning run in the ninth. New York comes from behind, scores 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth to win this one 9-8. The Swats improved to 11-16 here, and Detroit falls to 14-13. Henke now has 3 blown saves this year, which is just incredible. And so, yeah, that's a very, very shocking game here as New York refused to go away quietly. Finally, we head over to St. Louis, and where Chicago was coming to town, the Chicago Docks. And in this one, it was a lot of sloppy play there in the early part of the game. Doc Gooden, unfortunately, was the recipient, or he was the one that kind of took the brunt of it. So there was an error there by Jeff Kent in the first inning that led to 2 unearned runs on a Willie McCovey double. And then in the next inning, there was an error on Ken Boyer. Ron Santo plays for the Wizards. Ken Boyer had an error that led to another unearned run. That put the Wizards up 3-0, and the Wizards have been fairly unbeatable this year, though they, as they headed to the All-Star break, they look a little bit more human. I think there were only 5 of their last 10, so they look a little bit more human, but not a team you want to give up a bunch of unearned runs to. And there were 3 there in the first 2 innings. They'd score another run in the third to put them up 4-0. Chicago would get 2 back in the fourth. Buster Posey had a double, cleared the bases there. So to cut the lead to 4-2. And then in the sixth, Steve Carlton, by the way, pitching for the Wizards. In the sixth, Jeff Kent hit a 2-run shot to tie things up and give some life to the Docks. However, heading into the 8th inning, Gooden still out there. He'd struck out the side in the 7th, but had walked 1. But with 9 strikeouts, he came back out there for the 8th inning. He felt good, felt comfortable, but almost immediately Ozzie Smith doubled. Oscar Charleston moved him to third, or excuse me, no, Ozzie Smith doubled and then stole third. Oscar Charleston grounded out to short on a drawn-in infield, and Ozzie Smith had to hold there at third. But then Tony Gwynn singled him in for the go-ahead run, 5-4. Fergie Jenkins had pitched a perfect eighth for the Wizards, and Bruce Sutter came in. Very controversial that he missed the All-Star roster, despite leading the entire Maelstrom in saves. And he came in and did what he does best and pitched a 1-2-3 ninth inning there for his 9th save of the season. And with it, the Wizards become the first team to 20 wins. They're 20-7. Chicago falls to 9-18, one of the worst records in the Maelstrom. So if we head over to check out the standings here, we can see that Boston has increased their lead a little bit in the American League. They're now 2.5 games up on Detroit. And in the National League, the Wizards are still kind of running away with this one. They're 6 games up on LA. As you can see there, Chicago in the cellar at 9-18. So they're going to have a rough start to their second half, and we'll see if they can turn things around. So if you want to follow any of the action, you head over to baseballmaelstrom.com, and you can get access to all of the write-ups. I do a little write-up, a little paragraph on each game that I play that you can find here on the right. You can see the standings. You can see the upcoming games for the next day, which would be May 3rd. You can see the past scores here. You can click on any of these to get a recap and all that fun stuff, or you can just go to the stats and check out the stats for the league. So we're past the All-Star break now, heading into the second half of the season, and we'll see as things progress who is able to rise to the top and who is not. Let's see if anybody can catch St. Louis, who is an easy candidate there to make the World Series in the National League. Let's see if anybody can stop them. I think that's where we'll leave things for now. Thanks so much for coming by and watching. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe. I do have some other league ideas in mind coming up. For now, I'm going to finish this Pops League with Payoff Pitch Baseball. But I do, as I said, have some other ideas, so be watching for that. I also occasionally put out videos where I analyze some data from the 2022 MLB season to see how often certain events happen and whether it fits conventional wisdom or not. So if you're interested in that, also consider subscribing to the channel. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a great evening.